Straight into introducing our speaker, Elida Brereton. Elida is here with us now. I have Valerie prepared this for her, so I'll be taking Valerie's words for this. After completing her education, Elida taught humanities subjects, especially geography, at high schools around Victoria and in London, and in Geelong, where she became a rabid Geelong supporter, age 9, before becoming Principal of Camberwell High School. She gave 42 years of service to education. Currently, Elida is an honorary member of 3 boards, including 1 independent school, and chair of the board of the major provider of chaplains in government schools. She's president of the National Council of Women Victoria, a former seroptimist, international member, and a Paul Harris Fellow from the Rotary Club of Camberwell. Elida was co-author of the popular geography textbook series Through a Geographer's Eyes. She has represented the Department of Education in China, South Korea, United Arab Emirates and Dubai, and also in Vietnam in school organization and curriculum development. Former president and current fellow of the Australian College of Educators, life member of the Victorian Association of State Secondary Principals, and current president of the Victorian State Secondary Past Principals Association. Rather than these many stellar career achievements in education, Valerie has noted that you will probably more likely remember Elida for her role as Miss Murray in the ABC series at the Principal of Summer Heights High, created by Chris Lilly in 2007. So I'll welcome Elida and invite her to come up to the lectern.
Elida, are you happy with being recorded?
Yes, I've just brought my own gin and tonic. Thanks to Bruce. Thank you very much for that very generous welcome. And thank you all very much for having me. I'm slightly croaky, but it's the end of a cold. It's not contagion. You'll be glad to know. Yes, I had 43 years with the Education Department, and of course it changed its name numerous times while I was with them. DOE, DEET, DSE, you name it. And I had a wonderful grandfather, my mother's father, who had, with his 13 grandchildren, and we cousins are all great mates, thanks to staying with Nana and Grandpa, he had these sort of, not rules, but these beliefs, these things that he wanted to instill in us. And the first one was that he wanted us to believe in and love and obey God. Okay, Grandpa, we'll do our best. The second one was love and respect and look after Nana. Now, that was much easier to do than the God part, because Nana was actually there. Nana spoiled you, she brought you hot chocolate in bed at night, and so on, and you didn't have to eat horrible vegetables. The third one was absolutely immutable. You had to barrack for Geelong. Now, it doesn't matter, in the family, not everyone still goes to church or believes in God. And of course, Nana has long since gone. This is way back when I was a child, of course. But every one of us, by birth or marriage, has to barrack for, and does, passionately barrack for Geelong. The fourth one Grandpa believed in was that we should all be good at cricket. And so the boy cousins particularly, it's terribly sexist, isn't it? But that's what happens. They were quite good at cricket, and we girls had to go. We weren't brilliant, but the boys took it quite seriously. Grandpa loved cricket, and of course my family and I all went to the G for all those one-day games and the test matches. We were there for West Indies and so on. The fifth one was public speaking. Grandpa had left school at age 12, and a self-made man, as we would say, and he believed in the value of speaking well. And so when we were all at Nana and Grandpa's place, first of all at Verdry Gully and then at Box Hill, Grandpa would get up and we'd be all there for a family lunch, and the table would be groaning and extended, and all the cousins, all the aunties and uncles, and he would say, "Ian, my eldest grandson," and my cousin Ian would go, "Oh, would you please get up and say grace?" And poor old Ian would have to frantically find a grace that wasn't 2468 Boggy Don't Wait, given Grandpa's belief in God. Or then he might say, my eldest granddaughter, Elida, would you like to thank your grandmother and your mother and your aunts for the food, for providing the food today? And he'd make us all speak in public. So Grandpa was pretty good with that. He also taught us not to judge too much by appearances. And I remember two examples I'll share with you. One was, I was on the train going into the city in 2010 when I just retired, and 15 and a bit years at Camberwell High as principal, and suddenly I'm retired, before I took up all the other things, but never mind. And I'm on the train in February while other people are working at schools, and I'm happy as Larry, I'm going into the city, and on at a particular station on the Glenwaverley line gets a hoon. Now, how do I know he's a hoon? He's got a hair with attitude. He's covered in tats. He makes Dane Swan and Dusty Martin look like blank canvases. He's got piercings all over the place. He's wearing a singlet, hairy chest and so on. Sits down opposite me, gets his phone out, and he says, I hear him say, hi, Granny, I was wondering if I could come round and do some shopping for you. Now, he's still a hoon, but a nice one. The second one, I don't ever tell bad stories about Camberwell High because when I was there it was a wonderful school, and I think it probably still is. But there were examples every now and again. This was the first day, my first year at Camberwell High, 1995, and I'm out at the front gate of one, there's many gates, but I'm out at one of the Prospect Hill Road, for those who know it, and I'm greeting the clientele as they come in. Some people used to call little clients, as a joke. The kids as they're coming in, beaming and smiling, because I know some of them, I don't know the new ones necessarily, I know some aunts and uncles and big sisters and brothers and all that. And it's very nice. And the day goes on, and then at 3 o'clock I'm at my desk and I suddenly think, crikey, first day! Because on the first day of school with students, because we've all been there for weeks, the year 7s are allowed out early, so they won't be trampled to death by years 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So I rush out into the courtyard, and there's the only kids who are there at 3 o'clock are the year 7s, walking past me, and some of them have got school bags. They brought every book from home at first day of school. And anyway, they're fresh uniforms, looking... And they're looking quite happy as if they're going to come back tomorrow, which is really good when you're paying for 119 staff. And so I went out to the gate and said good night, bye to some of them, and the buses came and they were walking to the stations and through to the trams maybe, and bikes, walking, whatever. And finally, there's one dear little girl left. And she's got pigtails and she's got the uniform beautifully pressed and little scrub face and blue eyes. And she's got a big bag on her back and she's looking up and down the road. So I went over and I said to her, and what's your name? And she said, Carla. And I said, oh, that's lovely. I said, have you had a good first day at Camberwell High? Yes. What did you like best? Phys ed and home economics. I said, oh, no wonder we chat a bit more. She suddenly looks up and down the road. She looks up at me with these big blue eyes and she says, shit! Thanks to you talking to me, I've missed my bloody bus. Now, she wasn't typical of Camberwell High School. But, every now and again you find these wonderful ones. Now, what I want to do is to be serious for a little while and talk about school then and school now. And of course you're different, varied ages, but those who are as old as me would remember particularly sitting in rows of desks, sitting in pairs usually. We were more or less blotting paper. The teacher was out the front, the teacher knew everything. And we copied things on the board. Maybe we had a textbook, we answered questions, we did nature study and so forth and so on. But we were more or less compliant little souls trying to learn and trying not to have bullies around us pulling our hair or doing whatever kids do still in class, except nowadays, of course, they've all got their devices. We could all leave at 14, couldn't we? In fact, possibly people could leave earlier, but everyone got their intermediate certificate and you tried to get your leaving. And certainly you could leave at 14 because you'd have a job to go to, and it was quite accepted that you might leave at 14. We've got students now in our schools who are 18 who are not allowed to leave till they complete year 12 if they want to get any sort of job. So that's the basic thing, that you complete year 12. You don't have to have a score, you don't have to get a brilliant ATAR, but you have to finish year 12 if you want any sort of job. And a lot of them turn 18 during the year. There's no tech schools anymore. And we've got 18-year-olds who drive their cars to school. Now, as soon as they were able to drive got their licence and wanted to bring their car to school, we used to get their registration plates, have them on a list, so that if the neighbour rang up and said, "There's a child in a Mustang just hurling around, and nearly ran over my dog. What's the number plate?" Well, it's not us. I hope it wasn't us. It wasn't one of our kids. But we've got 18-year-olds sitting there, some of whom hate school, and it's irrelevant to them, they don't want to be there. So that's one of the differences again. We were expected, when we were learning, we were not doing cooperative stuff, were we? We didn't work in groups very often, unless you were in a very advanced school. So I'll share a story. When I did retire in 2010, I got asked by the Education Department the Department of Education and Training, I got asked to pilot a brand new scheme to encourage top educators to become principals of government schools. Now you might say, why the heck do you have to encourage people? When I left in 2010, and now you read the papers and it's the same, if not worse, no one wanted to be a principal of a government school because it was too stressful, there was that much compliance. The last Friday of every month, when I was a young teacher, was the time when you added up your roll and it had to, the number of students and the absences had to tally, and you couldn't go home, and some of them want to go to the pub, you couldn't go to the pub until the numbers matched. Well, at the end of every month for a government school principal, when I was still there, I went into compliance, and there were 72 items I had to say yes, no, or in progress to. Now, they included hilarious ones like, how is your plantation, the school plantation, in good nick, good condition? And the other one was the state of your flagpole. Now, given our flagpole at Camberwell High, a 3-storey school, was way up on the roof, and you only went there when you wanted, as a major expedition, to replace the flag when it was getting a bit tatty. That wasn't one that I did every month. Send someone up to the roof. You had all these compliance things. You had the number of teachers currently with first aid training up to level whatever it is. I've informed school council of the number of teachers who have ladder training. All this stuff. It was unbelievable. And that's the sort of stuff that drives principals out of schools. They're not dealing with kids and real things. They're dealing with all this paperwork. So we would be doing this compliance. Anyway, no one was applying to be principals. So they came up with this brilliant scheme, and I had to be the pilot person, to find 25 top secondary and primaries, potential principals, and they'd usually be an assistant principal, and they would screen them very, very carefully. They would place them in 25 schools. Now, if someone lived in Mildura and was really potentially going to be a great principal, they'd be some school up there, and ditto. Place them in a school with a principal from July till December, and that person would go in and learn how to be a principal, but also would do stuff, and would have to develop a legacy project, a project whereby you could do something that the school desperately needed, and when you left, that was going, it was still there. Now, I'll give you an example, and remind me, sometimes I ramble a bit when I get into these stories. Wangaratta West Primary. I went up there to visit my intern up there, and we called them interns, the ones who were practicing for 6 months with another principal. And I also went, I'll jump from there to Wandong. I went to Wandong one day. I'm driving up the Hume Highway and I'm thinking, am I in Sydney yet? I couldn't believe that I even got to Wandong. Wandong, the principal took on one of these 6-month interns, these bright younger things, as we would say. And this fellow was a bright young thing. He was a Collingwood supporter, so we used to have bets with Mars bars. And when he came to her school to do his 6 months to learn how to be a principal in a little primary school, He came from Kilmore Primary, where he was the #1 guru on iPad, learning with iPads and training parents and all the staff and all the kids how to use iPads for learning, not just for playing games and so on. He gets to that school in Wandong, and Elaine, the principal, lovely woman, says to him, the one thing we don't have a clue of, pardon me for running note, the one thing we don't have a clue about much is using iPads for homework and learning. And of course he says, well, I'll do that. So he he ran classes for all the parents. Now there were only 40 kids in the school, so it wasn't too onerous. And trained them all. He trained the staff, he trained the kids. They entered competitions, they won competitions for brilliant inventiveness and so forth. So that's a legacy he left. I went down to Moe and I drove through a nice part of Moe. I'm thinking, why do they all make these jokes about poor old Moe, moccasins on everyone and so on. And then I got to the Housing Commission area, the very old run-down area, I hate to tell you, and there was this really tough school. They had Sudanese kids there, and I thought, how do those poor Sudanese kids cope with getting to the culture of Australia and also Moe, But anyway, the principal there had said to me, 40% of the children here have never seen a parent go off to do a day's work. 50% of my students, it was a big school, 500 kids, 60% of my students have never seen mum, or if they had a dad, mum or dad read anything except perhaps junk mail. Now, this is the disadvantages, isn't it? So the intern, one of these 25, went there and she developed a welfare plan, a whole program for welfare. She went and visited families if they wouldn't come to the school. She didn't take no for an answer. And she gradually changed all the attitudes virtually of every parent there, so that the kids were made to come to school. The kids couldn't just say, oh, I've got a tummy ache, I don't want to go, I don't like so-and-so. The poor old parents where there was no dad got special extra help and so on. And so that was a wonderful thing. So, get to where I started to go. I made my appointments in July. I met the principal and the intern in their school. I'd already met them in June when they met each other, so it's a bit like marriage at first sight. Then in September or October, either side of the holidays, I would go to one of that school, and see how you're going with your project and also how you're going in general. And then December I'd rock up, again make an appointment, thank the host principal immensely, sign off the performance plan with the intern and congratulate the intern how well you've done, and then invariably the interns applied for and got a job as a government school principal. So it worked. I get to Wangaratta West Primary, and this is July, so fresh, and I meet the principal whom I've already met before, and my intern, and the principal says, would you like to see the school? And I said, love to. So we walk around the school, and all the kids are working away, and we go into a classroom of grade 5s. Now they're all 9 or 10 years old, okay? Little kids. And well, they're big in the school, but little to us. So I go into that class and they're all working, and they're working around Kevin Rudd furniture. Do you remember that building education revolution way back when Kevin Rudd gave millions of dollars for libraries and gyms and things? And some schools didn't need them, but they still got it, whereas secondary schools didn't. We got 250,000. Anyway, I go into this classroom and it's Kevin Rudd furniture, beautiful coffee tables, portable, big, lovely square, what you call ottomans, with wheels, bright colours, and you can wheel them around into any configuration. And clearly, the the teacher has said to the students, today we're working in groups, get your furniture, and they're all in groups of 5 around a coffee table. Every child seems to be working. They've got iPads, they've got clipboards, they've got notes and so forth. So I went over to a group of little boys, and they didn't bat an eye at this strange woman wandering in from the street. And I said, what are you boys doing? And they said, one of them said, we're doing persuasive writing. Well, I nearly fell on the floor. Persuasive writing is what you do when you're in year 12 or at uni. You're given you're given a hypothesis, a statement. Now, I'll be silly here. I'll say, Collingwood will, the fashion now is Hawthorne, isn't it? Hawthorne will win the premiership in 2025. So let's say that's the statement.